Здравствуйте, уважаемые участники международного проекта «Русский язык в Африке. Дорогой, дружбы и сотрудничества». Наш проект реализуется Центром дополнительного образования «Альфа-диалог» при поддержке Министерства просвещения Российской Федерации. My name is Bogdanova Marina, and I'm the course coordinator of Alpha Dialogue Educational Center. Russia, Africa through the pages of history and culture. And I'm pleased to welcome our first speaker, Olga Kulkova.
Dear colleagues, dear guests, dear participants of the project, I would like to tell the most vivid pictures, the most vivid moments of the cooperation between Russia and Africa in the spheres of culture and science through the last two probably centuries. And first of all, I would like to start with Africa in the mirror of the Russian culture. And it is important to say that African continent has always attracted attention of Russian cultural figures like writers, poets, artists, and many of them made invaluable contribution in this aspect. For example, famous poet Valery Brusov, beginning of the 19th century, and Nobel laureate Joseph Brodsky, 20th century, wrote about Africa. In fact, in the beginning of the 19th century, he foreseen the national liberation of African peoples. He also thought that Russian literature is in the best place to acknowledge peoples in the West and the East with the treasuries of the Russian culture. And in July 1907, he went to North Africa. He visited Tunisia and Algeria. Here you can see the examples of his paintings from Algeria and Tunisia. He visited Africa 3 times, and the most complete evidence he left was the 4 chapters of his African diary. Upon returning, he immediately donated the collection to the Museum of Anthropology and Ethnography. But here we see, at this picture, we see how Nikolai Gumilev records songs from the words of an Oromo singer. A translator stands nearby in Ethiopia in 1930. Also, the famous Russian traveler Nikolai Miklucha-Maklai began his research in Africa. He traveled to the Canary Islands, visited Morocco, the Red Sea, Eritrea, and the Eastern Sudan. He was born in a distant African homeland south of the Sahara Desert near the Lagon River. And he is the first known African in Russia. He was asked by the French to stay in France, but he chose to return to Russia. And then he made a brilliant career in Russia. He was a military general, and he had a long and interesting life. These travels by Russian scientists and travelers, they led the foundation of the further exploration and investigation and studies of the African continent during the Soviet times. And of course, the Soviet time travels and research, they led the foundation for what Russian scientists do now in Africa. And for example, geological research gave, in Soviet times, geological research was brilliant, and many findings made in those times, they are still valuable. And this research is continued by Rosszarubesh, for example. And many scientists like ethnographers and geographers and biologists, they visit Africa nowadays, and they organize expeditions. And the Russian scientists still continue to analyze African literature, make translations. So this is continued, of course. In 1 week, we are going to discuss the actual state of the Russian-African relations, business ties, social ties, economic interaction, political landmarks, as well as the outcomes of the 2 Russia-African summits in 2019 and 2023.
And but before that, we're going to have the first meeting with the students who would like to study Russian, and it's going to be on Thursday, on the 14th of September.
And many Russian people, all of them who visited Africa, they were fascinated by the African continent, and they expressed their fascination in various forms, in the forms of pictures, in the form of poems, books, even fantastic books, and even scientific descriptions, like many volumes of scientific research. Many Russian.
Ольга Сергеевна, спасибо большое за нашу встречу. Ольга Сергеевна, thank you very much for this meeting. I hope that this is the very beginning of our cooperation, of our project, and I do hope that it's going to deepen the connection between Russia and African cultures. And